ඉන්න දෙන්නෙක් වෙනවා.
එහෙනම් ඒ දෙන්න අතර ඉන්නවා. ප්‍රශාන්ති පොන්නම හරියද? Good morning and welcome to the Sunday service. This morning we go into the meditation. A few minutes we are going to practice metta meditation. After the metta meditation, Venerable Panyaloka is going to give a Dhamma talk. After that, question and answer, and last item, chanting. So right now, Reverend Chandasara is going to lead the metta meditation.
Good morning, children. Good morning to everybody. Now, shall we prepare ourselves to generate loving kindness thoughts? For that, we start with the mindfulness breathing meditation, brief mindfulness breathing meditation to relax our body and mind. Now, shall we sit in an upright, comfortable, upright posture? Just gently breathe in and breathe out. Mindfully, we breathe in and breathe out. No thrust, just as our breathing naturally occurs. Breathe in and breathe out as they naturally occur, but with mindfulness. Mindfully breathe in and breathe out for a couple of minutes. While letting the breath naturally occur, we know when breathing, we're breathing. When we are breathing out, we are breathing out. Just mindfully breathe out and in. Now we are going to spread loving kindness thoughts in this way. May all the living beings, including me, be physically well. May all the living beings, including me, be safe. May all the living beings, including me, be mentally well. Let's continue spreading loving kindness thoughts in this way until we hear the bell sound.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, Reverend Chansara, leading the metta meditation. Right now, Venerable Panyalok, can you start your Dhamma talk? You have time, whatever time you want to spend. And yes, you can start your Dhamma talk right now.
Thank you so much, Bante. Much respect and much gratitude to the Buddha, his great teaching, and his true disciples. Today, I would like to talk about something related to Buddhist karmic theory and some of the incidents that are going on in the world. So when I got this invitation to give the Dhamma talk today at the IBMC Sendo, I was thinking like what I should talk about. But over the past few weeks, and I think I was going through a thought, and this puzzled me many times, and I was trying to link this experience with my understanding, with my experiences of the Buddha's teaching, especially with the Theravada teaching. And I think before 3 weeks or 1 month ago, we experienced a deadly attack just close to the Montero Park, right? And there, I think more than 11 people died. More than 11 people died, and more than, I think, 20 people were injured and they were hospitalized. I think some of them are still suffering and they are going through the pains. It is the same when it comes to the attack 9/11. 3,000 people died. And many people were injured. And I think their families, family members, those who went through the attack, those who were hit by the attack, I think they are still, maybe some of them are still suffering and they have the bad memories. And for the whole nation, it's a bad experience, and it's a bad experience not only for this nation, America, but for the whole world. Those who have hearts, they feel this attack, and it's a horrific attack, 9/11 attack. And when I was here before my departure in 2021 to Sri Lanka, it was in 2017, the attack in Las Vegas. Again, 61 people died. And many people were hit by this attack, and they were also hospitalized by this deadly attack in Las Vegas in 2017. So all these 3 attacks, and even though I do not wish to have happen another one tomorrow, but who knows? Something terrible could happen today or tomorrow, and no one can predict. But one thing is pretty clear: there is a person, always there is a person to, to continue this kind of an attack. Somebody will do it, and this is a never-ending process, I think. Dhamma speakers and the social workers, intelligent people,
they always talk about the horrific sides of these attacks. And the people who are with hearts, and they want to stop these kind of activities throughout the whole world. So I'm not going to talk about the attacks like this, when a person gets angry with another one, he will do some kind of thing, like he will get angry. So many ways they will do a lot of bad deeds in so many ways. So over the past few weeks and months, when I was thinking about these things, and from time to time, I got this idea. I had this puzzle in my mind, like how they are going to put an end to this kind of activities. I mean, the results generated by these activities will come after the person for a long time. That is my understanding. That is my experience also. So I would like to connect, link these kind of activities, deadly attacks, and whatever the bad things people do, with one of the sutras I have read in the Theravada teachings. It is the Karajakaya Sutta, and this sutta is in the Anguttara Nikaya, the section, it is the 10th, 2018 is the page. And likewise, this can be found even in Anguttara Nikaya, 5th section, 299 page. So there Buddha says, there are two statements. I will come to that later. There are two statements that contradict, that we can agree with, and these two statements do not go with the earlier teachings of the Buddha. But there is one statement at the very beginning of the sutta, and there Buddha addressed monks, saying that there is no any other way paying for the intentional actions, intentional deeds for a person, and he or she has to pay for what he or she has done in this life. And the translation goes like, I do not say, monks, that without being experienced, there is coming to an end of intentional deeds that have been undertaken and accumulated. So in Pali it says like, Naham bhikkhave Sanchetanikanang kammanang katanang upachitanang appatisang viditva vyanti bhavang vadam. Here it is very important to understand, you don't have to follow these texts, original texts, but it says like appatisang viditva, without having faced vyanti bhavang vadami, there is no way of putting an end to what you have done intentionally. So just think about the attacks or whatever the things. If a person gets angry with the other one, and he might do a lot of bad activities, bad things, bad deeds. So if I do it with an intention, with a purpose, according to this sutta, Karajakaya Sutta, Buddha says that you have to pay for that. Yes, it's a must. We have to pay for that. How we are going to pay for that? How many times? No one knows. That's the unpleasant aspect of this intentional karmic actions. So how we are going to pay? Maybe you have to pay in this life itself. Maybe the person who has done that bad deed has to pay in the next life. If not, in the meantime, until you reach the final liberation, the nirvana. So you have to pay here or in the next life, or in the meantime, until you realize the final goal. So that is what the Buddha says. So when I was thinking about these, 9/11 attacks, Montero Park attack, and the Las Vegas attack, and throughout the whole world. Not only these three incidents, I mean, there are this kind of bad deeds throughout the whole world. And the person who is doing that bad action, he has an intention, he has a purpose. He knows that he is doing that. So what is the karmic theory? In brief, it is very simple to understand. If a person does an action with a purpose, intentionally, it becomes a volitional act, volitional action. So you have the purpose, you have the intention, you do it purposefully. So if a person do an act purposefully, Buddha says that we have to pay for that. Because we are the people who did it, and we are responsible for what we have done. So when I was thinking about this, these attacks and the other things also, I mean, the bad things people are doing, and I was thinking about this Karajakaya Sutta, how to spell it, Karajakaya, Karaja Kaya, Karajakaya Sutta. So in this sutta, though, this is a very, very simple, I mean, very short sutra. It's not a very long discourse, but it has a lot of important, Theravada Buddhist theories and very important teachings also. I'm not going to talk about all these things, but I was focusing on this statement, like Buddha says, if you do a bad thing, you have to pay for that in this life itself, or else in the next life, if not in the meantime. There is no any other way of escaping from our bad deeds. It's a must, we have to pay for that. All right. So then what about when we think about some incidents, some stories, like in the Theravada Buddhist teachings, we find we meet a monk like Angulimala. And why he was called Angulimala? Anguli means the fingers. Mala means the garland. So that person made a garland which is full of, people's fingers, and he killed people. And it is because of he killed people and collected fingers to make a garland. He was called Angulimala. And he was a massacre. He was a killer. And however, it is when he met the Buddha, he realized the final liberation. He achieved the nirvana. Until he passed away, he had to pay for what he did. He was going through a lot of bad experiences. Sometimes early in the morning, he goes to the villages, nearby villages, for seeking alms food. Whenever he goes around the villages and from city to city, people get scared of him because they know that this is a killer and he has killed many people. And sometimes people, they hit him with a lot of with stones, pebbles, and like this. He was people harassed him, and people attacked him whenever they saw him in a city, in a village. It's because he did the bad thing. He killed a lot of people. So this story tells us that Angulimala had to pay for what he did until his death, until his passing away. So how about our story, I mean, our lives? We are just ordinary people. We have not yet achieved the final liberation, right? So Buddha says in this sutta, Karajakaya Sutta, if people have done bad things, of course, they might have done bad things in their previous life. So for these former bad deeds, the only way of putting an end is we can develop the thought like, I'm going to end all the bad deeds I did in the previous life or previously in this life itself. So I'm not going to take it to the next life. So if I'm not going to take it to the next life, so I will not be reborn, right? That's the meaning. So if a person is not going to take it to the next life, take the results of intentional actions to the next life, that means he is no more in this samsara. That's how Buddha encouraged the his disciples and the people. However, it is when it comes to this sutra and the bad deeds, especially just think about when we are doing bad deeds like killing, stealing, and whatever the bad things. There are a lot of things. So we have to pay for that. There is no end until we pay for what we have done. So with this, I think these people who launched these attacks in Las Vegas, in 9/11 attack, and throughout the whole world, they will suffer in this samsara, throughout this samsara. And there is only one way of putting an end to that suffering. And this Sutta Karjakaya Sutta, it explains it. But I must say that I do not agree with this, with most part of this sutta, because even though it comes in the Theravada context, I have read some scholarly writings, and they say that this sutta is influenced by the Jains. In India, there were another group of ascetic called Jains, and even today there are Jains in India. They are also just like monks, Buddhist monks, and in their teachings, they say that if you do a bad thing, you have to pay for that. You have to pay for that. There is no way of escaping from what you have done in the previous life or previously. Your former deeds, bad deeds, have to be finished by paying for. That's what the Jains explain. But this goes against the original teachings, I mean the early teachings of the Buddha. Okay, just think about, imagine the person who attacked people and they massacre, they kill a lot of people, and but if there is no end for his suffering, he will suffer, maybe in this life, but in the next life or in the meantime, he will suffer. But if there is no end for his suffering, that means he's going to be in this samsara and he will be reborn again and again. So his duty is to pay for what he did. There is no emancipation. There is no freedom for him. This is against the original teachings, early teachings of the Buddha. Of course, who knows, he will have to pay for that, but there should be a way for the freedom. I think when it comes to the original teachings, the early teachings of Theravada Buddhism, it says that even though a person does a bad deed, there is an end. You can put an end to that suffering if you start practicing the true path. But in this sutta, Karjakaya Sutta, Buddha says in another place, that's where it contradicts with the original teachings of the Buddha. And towards the end, the latter part of the sutta, Buddha says that, yet monks, I do not say that there is some making an end of dukkha without having experienced the fruits of intentional deeds that have been undertaken and accumulated. So if it is impossible to put an end to the suffering, so what is the use of practicing a religion? What is the use of practicing this morality? So this is where it contradicts with the original teachings of the Buddha. Even though the latter part of the sutta says like that, there is no way of getting rid of that. And until you pay for what you have done, and you will not achieve the final liberation, then the person does not have a freedom. But whoever does the bad activities, bad deeds, he has to understand this. So this sutta says that there are two ways. So when it comes to I will say there are some parallel readings also. In the Chinese tradition, even in Tibetan tradition, the same sutta can be found, the same sutta, but with different, how I can say, the different interpolations, additions. So this Karajakaya Sutta is in the Theravada tradition. So it can be found in the Chinese Madhyama Agama texts. Those are called also the original text, Madhyama Agama texts. And even in Tibetan tradition, we can find the same sutta. In the Theravada context, it says that you can put an end to your results. If a person does a bad deed, he or she can put an end to that intentional volitional act, the results of that intentional volitional act, by following a moral path. That's the only way. So this Karajakaya Sutta says that if you start practicing for immeasurables, for Brahmaviharas, like loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity, you can put an end to that kind of suffering. At least you have to start it. If you're not going to practice for immeasurables, Brahmaviharas, how we are going to put an end to this suffering? How we are going to end the results of bad deeds? There is no way. You will suffer for a long time in this life, maybe in this life, maybe in the next life, maybe in the meantime, until you achieve the final liberation. But when it comes to the Chinese and the Tibetan traditions, they say that you can perform 10 wholesome deeds. 10 wholesome means 10 skillful deeds. And that's the only way you can finish, you can end this suffering. But this contradicts with the early teachings of the Buddha, like when you say you have to pay for what you have done. Of course, you will have to pay, but if there is no any other way of getting rid of that, and it is meaningless. So because the person does not have a freedom. And again, if the Buddha says in this sutta, in the Karajakaya Sutta, like, you cannot even achieve the final liberation if you are not going to pay for what you have done, for all the bad deeds you have done previously. No, that's not the case, because I told you, and many of you have the understanding, and you might have read that story, the story of Angulimala, the monk Angulimala, the one who killed people and made the garland with a lot of fingers, and he achieved the final liberation. He achieved the nirvana. They are like this, when it comes to Majjhima Nikaya, there is another person called Dhananjani. He was a lay person, and he was doing a lot of bad deeds throughout his whole life. His close friend was Venerable Sariputra. And one day Sariputra went to meet him, knowing that he is going to reborn in the hell, in a bad place, because he was doing a lot of bad things in his life. That person's name was Dhananjani. So Venerable Sariputra, he had a discussion with the Dhananjani, and later on he understood the Dharma, and he was born in a good place in the heaven after practicing, after understanding the Buddha's teaching. Like this, there should be an end for what we do. But if we continue these kind of bad deeds without knowing that there is a way to get rid of it, without knowing that there is a way to end this suffering, and we will have to pay for these things in this life itself, maybe in the next life, maybe in the meantime, until we achieve the final liberation. So why did I say that this contradicts when you say that you have to pay for all the bad deeds you have done? No, that's not the thing, because this sutta has been influenced by the Jains, and it is the standpoint, it is the teaching that we get from the Jains, Nigantas. In other words, we call them the Nigantas, Jain tradition. Their stance is, if you do a bad thing, you have to pay for that. There is no any other way of getting rid of that. Even if you want to still realize the final liberation, you have to pay what you have done. Now, if you have achieved the final liberation, if you are with the nirvana, and if you are not going to reborn in the next life, then that is the end of that bad deed. I mean, the results of those bad deeds, because you are no more in this samsara. So when it comes to the Theravada teachings, we can find this kind of instances in many places in the early teachings. Because I have to explain, I have to simplify, like the Theravada teaching is divided into different parts. And here I would like to say, like I said, that I mentioned that there is something called early Buddhist teachings, and then the later Buddhist teachings. Early Buddhist teachings comprises the original teachings of the Buddha. We can trust that this is exactly the word of the Buddha, the true word of the Buddha. But when it comes to the later teachings in the Theravada tradition, we can identify just by looking at the language. So you should have, if the person has the knowledge in linguistics, just by following the language and by comparing the other text, original texts in other traditions, in the Chinese tradition, in the Tibetan traditions, and we can find, like, definitely when the teachings of the Buddha, Theravada teachings, was handed down to the generations, it had some additions, interpolations. So it is a later addition. So the Karajakaya Sutta has been influenced by the Jains. So that is why we find this kind of two statements. But even though I do not agree with the last statement, like the Buddha says, like, you cannot achieve the final liberation until you pay for your actions, I don't agree with that. Even the scholars, there are a lot of scholars who have done a lot of researches, and they do not agree with that teaching. And in my case, I don't agree with the latter part of the sutta, but I have to agree with the first part of the sutta. Like Buddha says in the Karajakaya Sutta, you have to pay for what you have done, maybe in this life, maybe in the next life, maybe in the meantime. But it's still, there is a way you can put an end to suffering. That's a positive idea. Yes. And because I said, like, if we say, like, there is no way of putting an end to the suffering until we pay for all the bad deeds we have done, then this whole teaching, Theravada teaching, becomes fruitless. What is the use of practicing morality? What is the use of listening to the Dharma? What is the use of coming to the IBMC? Yes. So there is a way. Because in the Dhammapada, if I'm not mistaken, I think in the Dhammapada, it is the chapter 13, and the verse is 173. It says, like, he whose evil deeds are superseded by meritorious deeds illumines the world as the moon freed from a cloud. So we can loosen the person, whoever the person has done the bad deed, he can loosen the grip of that bad action by doing good things, especially by doing the skillful things which are related to the nirvana. So in Buddhism, in Theravada Buddhism, we can find two terms. Punya means meritorious deeds. You practice giving, you practice generosity, like this, lot of things. So it is punya. So kusala. Kusala means the skillful actions. Whatever the things you practice to achieve the true path, whatever the things you practice to reach the final liberation are called kusala. So if you practice, if your purpose, your intention is to achieve the final liberation, Buddha says that you can loosen the grip of these bad actions. You can at least loosen the grip of these bad actions, but you can't cancel. There is no way of canceling the bad results of intentional actions. And that is one place. And again, in another place in the same text, Dhammapada, I think it is the chapter 9, the verse is 121, and it says that the chapter is called Papavagga, the chapter of sins. And there Buddha says, Mava manyeta papassa namantang aga misati. Never underestimate the bad deeds, thinking that the results will not come back to you. It will come back to you. So that's it I wanted to share with you today. So just think about the people who are doing bad things, especially the people who did I was horrified when I heard the news 9/11 attack. At that time, I was in the university. I was reading for my first degree, BA degree in the university in Sri Lanka. I was horrified after hearing this attack. And after this attack also, just imagine what happened. And a lot of people are still suffering. And to punish for what they did, a lot of things happen. I'm not going to share it with you today because you know already what happened. Like after that horrified, deadly massacre, and some people, they came forward and they started punishing those who are, for the culprits, for the criminals. But just imagine, it's again an anger. So with this, I would like to finish my Dhamma sharing. I don't want to take much time to discuss these things, but I was just thinking, like, if we do an action intentionally, with a purpose, with a volition, we have to pay for that. Of course, we have to pay for that. It might be in this life itself, maybe in the next life, maybe in the meantime, until we achieve the final liberation. Suppose if we are not going to put an end to the results of these intentional deeds, bad deeds, so how we are going to finish it? How we are going to end this suffering? We at least we have to start from somewhere. Like, we can practice compassion, we can practice kindness, we can practice appreciative joy, we can practice equanimity. That's the way the Karajakaya Sutta, where the Buddha encourages us. So in the Chinese and even in Tibetan traditions, they encourage us, you can do skillful things. Forget about the numbers, 10 wholesome, 10 skillful actions. You don't have to remember all these 10. At least if you have the common sense, like, this is bad and this is not good, and you can stop there. So like this, we can at least practice compassion, love. Love is boundless. And if you start practicing it, it has no boundaries. And yes, so I don't like to take much time to talk about how we can practice love, compassion. We already know that we can practice it using our mind, spreading the compassionate thoughts to the whole universe. That's one way. And again, we can practice compassion and kindness to people by giving, by helping them, by reaching them in many ways. There is no only one way. And if we go to the third one, appreciative joy, we are happy whenever we see when others are in happiness, in peace. And finally, it is the equanimity. So if we can practice this kind of wholesome, skillful deeds, skillful actions, now we can put an end to the intentional bad deeds we might have done previously and in our previous birth. Yes, and we have no any other intention to do these kind of things in future. Now it's now. So with that, I would like to come to an end of this my Dhamma sharing today. I think that's enough for the day. Yes, we need to enjoy the rainy day, and tomorrow is also going to rain. I don't know. Yesterday it was raining throughout the whole day, and the day before yesterday also raining a lot, and I'm freezing, and it's cold for me. Yes, and you can enjoy weekend, and we have a few more hours for the weekend. Yes, that's it. I have to share with you today, even though I have a lot of things in my mind. My final conclusion is that Theravada teaching has been influenced by Jainism, Jains, Hindus, Hinduism, and by many other religions in India. But I have to say that early Buddhist karmic theory is not predeterministic. It is not predeterministic. That means I discuss this a lot. It doesn't mean that we have to pay every day. We have to pay in every moment for what we are doing. So there is no any other job. So what we are doing is we are paying for what we have done earlier. We can practice the true path. We can practice the nirvana like this, because there is no freedom for no. We still have the freedom. At least we have to start from somewhere. But I feel sorry for the for people, for the person who did the who attacked in Montero Park, who launched the attack 9/11, who launched the attack in Las Vegas, in many other places in the whole world. They will suffer a lot. At least if they hear the Dhamma, at least if they meet a person who explains this kind of a thing, like if he can start by practicing the true path, maybe for immeasurables, for Brahma Viharas, or the skillful things related to the Nirvana. That's it. I think we have 5 more minutes to 12. And thank you so much for listening to my Dhamma sharing. If you have any questions, comments, thoughts, please feel free to share it with me and with the audience. Yes, that's it. Thank you so much, and many blessings to you. Oh yeah, there's a question like, what is a dharma? Wonderful question. It's a big term. It's an umbrella term, and in a simple way, I can explain like dharma means whatever the good things we practice in this life, and whatever the things we study to achieve the final liberation, final salvation. Just forget about the labels of religions. We can call it like the dharma. So it could be the justice, it could be the fair play, it could be the reasonable way of living in this world. It's a faultless life. Dharma is nothing but it's a faultless life. But when it comes to the term dharma, it has a lot of meanings. But for the right moment, I can explain it like that way. It's a faultless life. Dharma means nothing but it's a faultless life. Any more questions? Yeah, it seems like there are 6 people in this Zoom, including me. No more questions. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Reverend Sadaf, for your comment and for your appreciation.
This looks like a normal question. Thank you so much, Panyaloka. I don't know this sutra is having in Chinese and Tibetan also.
The versions?
Yes, no, whatever sutra you talk.
Yes, Bhante, it has, the Karajakaya Sutra, not only the Karajakaya Sutra, many sutras. Yeah. Yes, we have the Theravada, many sutras, even in Chinese tradition, but with little, some changes. even in Tibetan tradition. So there are parallel readings. Yes.
All right, we're going to chant the page 4 and page 10. Before the chanting, I just want to say two things. Temple is open for everybody. Please come and join with us every Sunday. The next Sunday is Kusala is going to give a Dhamma talk. And the next Sunday, which is the first Sunday of each month, we do have 9:30 to 10:30 meditation. So come and join. And Subodha Stephen is going to lead that meditation every month, first Sunday of every month. That's right now the announcing. So we'll chant the page 4 and page 10.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham saranam gacchami. Dhammam saranam gacchami. Sangham saranam gacchami. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them all. Deluding passions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them all. Dharma gates are limitless. I vow to study them all. Buddha's way is supreme. I vow to attain it. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and the sick find health truly. Oh God. Oh God. Thank you again for everybody. Thank you, our good friend Kashanti and Shraddha also. They are being here every Sunday. We want to see you guys here. And of course, Mr. Nam and Subodha and Chansara and all the monks, everybody here. We are happy here. We are happy family. Thank you again for everybody. So I think we have tea and cookies. Yes, Chansara?
I think so. We have at least hot water and tea and cookies. Yes. And again, by the power of the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, you all be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Ivar